Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, I'm actually going to be giving the answer to a question that I received recently that I thought would be perhaps useful for those people that listen to the show, rather than just answering the individual directly. Why not answer the question publicly, if that makes sense? So the question was, where did I learn hypnosis from, and what were my influential influences? Who inspired me in the world of hypnosis? So there's two different parts to this question. The first is, where did I learn hypnosis? Most of the hypnosis that I learned was self-taught. Some people have heard me talk about this in previous episodes, but when I was 18, 19 years old, I had severe social anxiety. I became a recluse for almost a year. And one of the things that I used to do is go to the 24-hour library at the university that I was studying psychology when there was no people around, and just learn for two reasons. One, I had a fascination in psychology, but secondly, I wanted to make a change in myself. So I read almost every book on hypnosis and all the different varieties of psychotherapy that I could find, because I wanted to fix myself. That was really the motive. And to some extent, I was successful with that. Not immediately, but I managed to change some of my beliefs, get my anxiety to a manageable level, and that really helped me. And it was when I was in my mid-30s that I decided that I wanted to do it seriously. It was an area that I kept coming back to. So I wanted to kind of learn it formally, and then, potentially start seeing clients rather than just working on myself. So I'll get back to who I learned from and who influenced me when I was self-learning, but academically, I studied with an organization called the London College of Clinical Hypnotherapists. And the reason that I studied with them were that they were affiliated with a university. So at the time, the LCCH were affiliated with the University of West London, so that I could have postgraduate qualifications linked to hypnosis. And almost all hypnotherapy training at that point was qualifications not linked to any kind of academic rigor. So I have 2/3 of a master's degree in clinical hypnotherapy. I just chose not to do the final segment, which was the research dissertation, because I wanted to use this stuff, not write about this stuff. So it was the London College of Clinical Hypnotherapy, and people ask me if I recommend them. And I'd love to say yes, but knowing what I now know, I don't think I would have studied with them. Not because they're an unprofessional organization. I think there's very well-intentioned teachers teaching hypnotherapy, but I like to learn from people that are actually doing the stuff, working with clients. And it became evident that many of the teachers were able to teach this stuff academically and regurgitate notes, but they hadn't had an extensive amount of experience. They weren't seeing clients day in, day out. So for me, knowing what I now know, I think I would find someone that actually walks their talk and does a lot of hypnosis. Not to say I regret doing it, because it really did help me. It was very thorough academically, covered all the theories, covered the history. And we're talking about 3 years worth of study. So I got a lot of value from that, but it wasn't as practical and pragmatic as perhaps I would have ideally wanted. At the end of this episode, I'm going to give you a couple of resources that, just from people that have learned through a different way, have recommended, online academies that I think, if I was starting from scratch to learn hypnosis, I would probably move in that direction. So happy to share those. So LCCH, London College of Clinical Hypnotherapy, is where I have my qualifications, all at distinction level. I was never that academic, but I managed to get the highest qualifications. The more important question is, who did I really learn from, and what were my inspirations? And the first book that I can recall reading anything about hypnosis was actually a stage hypnosis book, I believe, from Ormond McGill. And there were a couple of kind of old school hypnotherapists that definitely had an impact when I was first getting started. And the two names there were Gill, Boyne, and Ormond McGill. Gill, Boyne, if you don't know, very respected figure in hypnotherapy, founded the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners, very competent teacher, and led to, you could say, more professional standards in the world of hypnotherapy, particularly in the US. Ormond McGill was, and I've heard people talk about him, very friendly, very lovely person. He was a stage hypnotist, and that was the first book that I read, because I was fascinated with this idea of the tricks that you could do with hypnosis. So reading his book really planted a seed, and I must have been about 11 or 12 years old, doing little hypnosis tests on my family. And that kind of planted the seed to learn more about hypnosis. But later on, when I really wanted to study it, another influential person throughout my teenage years in the UK, there was a stage hypnosis TV show called The Hypnotic World of Paul Mckenna. I later would work at the same radio station that Paul Mckenna worked at. So I saw where he got to, but also heard his kind of background, who he was in the world of radio before he became a hypnotist. And I was fascinated by, again, this kind of what seemed like magic was going on a stage, getting people to do, funny things. So it was really stage hypnosis that kind of, as it does with lots of hypnotherapists, inspires them to get curious. And I wouldn't say I learned a lot from Paul Mckenna. I've done a few of his weekend workshops, and I've read a few of his books. He popularized it, and I think inspired a lot of people. Obviously, he sold a lot of personal development books, but that was more what generated curiosity to actually learn more about it. And when I learned more about it, it was then that I discovered Milton H. Erickson. And probably Milton Erickson, if there is the greatest of all time of hypnotherapy, it's probably Milton Erickson. Considered one of the most significant people in the world of hypnosis, introduced revolutionary techniques, use of different language patterns, which then Richard Bandler and John Grinder kind of synthesized in terms of the Milton model, but used lots of metaphors and widely seen as hugely impactful. I don't think hypnosis would be hypnosis in the modern day without Milton Erickson. And I would say that I have more of an Ericksonian approach if you listen to any more than 2 or 3 of my podcast episodes, and I've got about 1,000 now, you're going to notice I naturally gravitate towards metaphors, analogies. I don't have this kind of authoritative style of you will never do this or you will never want to eat sugar again. It's more introducing embedded commands, covert suggestions, metaphors that get to see things in a different way. So I think probably the biggest impact on me probably was Milton Erickson. And the thing that I found fascinating, which really inspired the idea for this podcast, is the transcripts. I was fascinated by seeing real transcripts of him working with real clients. And that's the whole premise of this podcast, is that you're not listening to me do scripts. You're hearing 99% of all the episodes are me working with real clients with real issues. That's what I found fascinating when I was learning about hypnosis. So that's really what I've tried to do different in the world of hypnosis. But Erickson really inspired that. Another less impactful person on me, but hugely impactful to the world of hypnosis, probably Dave Elman, very prominent hypnotherapist, known for rapid induction techniques. Most famous, of course, is the Elman induction. And that uses things like fractionation, convincers, tests. And what he really understood is that you need to sell the client on the idea that they're hypnotized before the suggestions are going to really be effective. And that was really impactful when I was working in the early days. I had so many convincers, and I would say, look, try and open your eyes, or notice how, heavy your arm might be and things like that. But that was influenced by Dave Elman. I would say after Erickson, the next most impactful and influential person that had an impact on my hypnosis was probably Richard Bandler. And obviously known as the co-founder of neurolinguistic programming, but I've seen him live many times. He is an excellent hypnotist. Linguistically, the use of nested loops. It's almost impossible to listen to him without going into a trance, because there is phonological ambiguities, embedded commands, open loops, nested loops, things, a conversation starts and then you realize that story never ended, and then it fused into something else. And what that naturally does is it creates a lot of confusion and receptivity. Excellent use of metaphors. And I think clearly had a big impact on the world of hypnosis. Probably the biggest influence on those people that popularized a lot of personal development, had a big impact on people like Tony Robbins, had a big impact on people like Paul McKenna. Richard Bandler still works a lot with Paul McKenna now. So influential in himself, but also big influencer of the people that had huge audiences. So I think, in my opinion, Milton Erickson and Richard Bandler are probably the two biggest impacts on me, but also more widely the overall modern world of hypnotherapy, in my opinion. Of course, feel free to disagree, but that's my perception. And the final person I wanted to give credit to, that I think is an amazing hypnotist, but also someone that has generated curiosity into the world of kind of hypnosis and the power of the mind, actually isn't known as a hypnotist. He's known as a mentalist, but I would say Derren Brown, a British mentalist and illusionist, is an amazing hypnotist. I've seen him live a few times, and his ability to give suggestions and kind of induce trance states. Now, the difference between live and recorded, with the benefit of recorded things, you can cherry pick the very best. So when you see YouTube videos of people doing stage hypnosis and street hypnosis, there is a lot of editing going on there, of 10 hours of content recorded. They're showing you the 30 seconds that was the most amazing bit. And that creates a distorted perception. When you see someone live in real time with a real audience, you get a sense of their competency. And as a hypnotist myself, I can very quickly evaluate the people that walk their talk and the people that are kind of blagging it to some extent. And Derren Brown is no joke. He is clearly an excellent mentalist, an excellent illusionist, but he's a very, very competent hypnotist. So I think that influenced me as well. And more recently, because I love continued learning, there is a Canadian hypnotist called Mike Mandel who has a podcast alongside a guy called Chris Thompson called Brain Software. And if you want free hypnosis training, that podcast is amazing. There is so many detailed conversations that clearly come from experience in that podcast. And when people ask me, do I teach hypnosis? I'd love to say yes, but I don't. I'm not a hypnosis trainer. I do workshops. I speak at conferences and things like that. But I'm not the person to teach you how to be a hypnotist. Now, maybe I'll create some kind of online course or something in the future, because I think I have a different style. But my time commitments mean that I'm not the right person to work with. I think I'm an excellent person that could help an already trained hypnotist to do something amazing with their brand and to, unfortunately, I know too many hypnotherapists that are very competent, but they're not making anywhere near the amount of money they could. And I think I'm this weird, kind of thing, because I was an investor and a business owner very young. I naturally look for the overlap in the Venn diagram of, well, how can you have an impact on the world and make money? And I think a lot of hypnotherapists, are very uncomfortable about being highly profitable, even though we're in the industry of having a positive impact on the world. So I offer mentorship to help people get good at that kind of stuff. But I think if I was to recommend a resource for people to learn hypnotherapy, knowing what I now know, and lots of other people that have learned hypnotherapy in a way that was different from my academic style, I would say there are two academies that I would recommend. One is the Mike Mandel Academy. So if you just Google that, you'll be able to find that. And I believe it's a subscription model and there's lots of video content. But I know it's coming from people that really understand hypnosis. And when I listen as a hypnotist, I listen to their content and I think, yeah, that relates to my experiences working with clients. So there's a lot of credibility attached to that. And the other would be the Jack Quinn Academy. So the Jack Quinn's father and son team based in the UK. Again, I know lots of hypnotherapists that studied sometimes with the Jack Quinn, sometimes with Mike Mandel, sometimes both, and very, very competent. So I would recommend those online academies, and therefore you don't have to get to a physical location like a college or a university. Of course, you can work with any of these people. They do kind of like training weeks and conferences that you can learn face-to-face. But I think their online learning that I've heard from people that I trust and are good hypnotists is very good. So I should be able to track down some links that I can put in the show notes. And if you are curious, if you are already a trained hypnotherapist, but you feel like you're not making the level of income that you want, or you're not getting enough clients that you want, I'll also put a link into my mentorship options. Because if you feel like I'm the right person to help you grow your hypnotherapy practice and not so much teach, but kind of give you feedback from my experience. And I think what makes me unique as a hypnotist is that my work is publicly available. A lot of hypnotherapists, you don't know how good they are, but you could listen to me doing 1,000 different hypnosis sessions just via my podcast. And that might not be your style. You might not like how I do hypnosis, but it's there for you to make that evaluation. And if you think that I could help you in the world of hypnosis, then click that link to explore me being a mentor for you. So there is no hypnosis in this particular session. There's 1,000 other ones that you could listen to. But for now, I just wanted to answer the question, who were my inspirations in the world of hypnosis? And I hope you found this useful. Take care.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.